This is Level Up Life After 40 with Chey P.
and Amy E., helping women over 40 to grow, reinvent, and stop settling for just getting by.
Because your best chapter might just be ahead.
Thanks for tuning in to another fantastic episode of Level Up Life After 40 with Chey P. and Amy E. And have you ever looked back in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, a work relationship, and thought, what in the heck was I thinking? Maybe you ignored the red flags. Maybe you tolerated things that you would definitely not tolerate today. Maybe you stayed in that relationship way too long. Or maybe you were the person that was trying to fix the other person. Either way, the good news is that wisdom comes with perspective. And with perspective, you gain wisdom. So today we're going to talk about wisdom in relationships and what we finally understand at age 40 that we could not have possibly ever understood when we were in our early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we're younger, we spend a lot of time learning how to have a relationship. At 40, we start learning which relationships are worth having.
Okay.
And there is a huge distinction. We're not necessarily looking for more people. We're looking for better relationships. We're looking for deeper connections. We're looking for healthier dynamics. And my favorite, we are looking for less drama.
It's true.
So another big piece of wisdom is also realizing that not every relationship is meant to last forever. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you individually failed.
No. Some things are for a season. What was it? Season, reason, and forever?
And yes, season, reason, purpose, right. If it doesn't fall into one of those things, why are you sticking around? I think when we're younger, we tend to fall in love with someone's potential. When you were in 20s and you were talking, you just met this guy and you've been dating him for a while and you just keep making excuses for him to your girlfriends. Oh, don't worry, he's going to change. Or, once he gets through this phase, when my kids are older, then I'll do ... Or, I know he seems like a difficult person, but deep down, he's a really great guy.
Yeah. Or, he has a sweet side.
Right.
The sweet side should be 97% of what we see, not 3%.
Wisdom teaches us to actually pay attention to who someone is, not who we hope they will become.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And let's face it, there is a difference between accepting someone's imperfections versus making excuses for their behavior.
Mm-hmm. And this goes for friendships too, because I know we'll probably focus a little more like on the romantic side, because that's usually where more red flags and those relationships, for whatever reason, seem to be a little bit harder to extricate ourselves from. But friendships apply too. We talked about with Aline, it's like, what am I doing to preserve this friendship? What is it costing me? And the same can be said for the romantic relationships. If you're in a romantic relationship and you find that you're losing yourself a little bit more, that is a giant red flag.
Well, going back to the conversation with Eileen, is you realize that their boundaries in a relationship also change.
Mm-hmm.
The way that someone talks to you might have been acceptable in your 20s, but certainly now we have the guts to say, you can't talk to me like that. We can shift the dynamic to be like, you know what, if this conversation becomes more disrespectful, then maybe we should end it and revisit it at another time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was going to say, and if it's somebody that you're dating and you are having, like, that's happening frequently, at some point you just stop having conversations. Like, how many times you're not going to talk to me in such a manner? More than once, maybe twice, depending on if it's that 3% of the time when you're just having a bad day. But if you are habitually talking down to me, I guess that's the only example I can come up with. Just being mean, judgmental, telling me what I should not do, can or can't do. That is never going to fly. I was a little spicy in my 20s, but I was more insecure, so I might have put up with something. Fortunately, I married like the best husband ever when I was 20, so that worked out really well. But these days, no way. No way.
Right. These days, I think we value our peace more than we value chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
right? When we're younger, we sometimes mistake intensity for intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
The butterflies in your stomach, the drama that goes along with it, with his ex-girlfriend, with his ex-wife, whatever that might be. You find yourself constantly texting or checking up on them or FaceTime. I'm in the car, honey. What you up to? The emotional roller coaster, the breakups, the makeups, the constant chaos. When you're younger, you kind of roll with it and find it acceptable. But I don't know about you, but at this point, I don't want a relationship that gives me butterflies. I want one that will let me breathe.
I do like the butterflies. That was always fun. Brett and I actually had a conversation because I said, like, first dates and that feeling, didn't you just love it? And he said, no, I hated it. I'm like, nope, that was, it was like, ooh. And well, I still think about Brett all the time, so I guess that works out. But I just remember when I first met him, you're right. I just could not stop thinking about him. And that was in the olden days. So if I missed his call when he called me from the payphone or from the ship, I missed his call. It's not like today where it's 100% access. It was more romantic in our day, I think. But you are correct. You want a space where you can be yourself. And this is for your friends too. Like, really, where you don't have to pretend to be something you're not. You can show up as you are. And you always say good, bad, or indifferent. Those are the places where you can be you. You're valued as you. You're encouraged to be your best, but you're accepted as who you are. And but people are also still not necessarily making excuses for you. So the red flags that you're looking for in somebody else, make sure that you're not throwing up those red flags as well.
Well, I think also we stop trying to be liked by everybody.
Mhm.
This goes along with romantic relationships and especially with friendships. Someone being disappointed in you doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something wrong. We always try to be the good daughter, the good wife, the best mom, a good employee, a good friend, a reliable individual, the peacekeeper, however you fit in that dynamic. Finally, you realize that I can be a good person and I'm not going to please all of the people all of the time. And that's okay.
Mhm.
Like the wisdom is realizing I can take that pressure off myself to be this perfect one trying to please everybody else. Because is this relationship really about the connection? Or am I spending more time worrying about how I'm not going to disappoint this individual?
Mhm. And we've talked about it can show up in so many places. It just makes me think back when I was early 20s and I was working in this long-term care facility, and we would have like different therapists that would kind of come in and fill in for us. Some of them were full staff, but usually we just had people that were kind of filling in here and there. And there was one person where I would try to do as much of the work for them as I possibly legally could, right? And there was one time, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I either wasn't able to do it, and they totally flipped out on me. And that moment has stuck with me because I was seriously people pleasing in that juncture, and I don't know why. And looking back at that, I'm like, what were you doing? That wasn't even your work to do. They were being paid big bucks to do this stuff. And it's like the one time where something didn't go exactly their way, or I didn't behave in the way they, in quotes, expected. They just lost their mind. I'm not kidding. Like, I think that's the first time I ever thought, this bee is crazy. But it was one of those moments where I'm trying to show up as somebody that I'm not, and serve and do. But obviously, when I wasn't fulfilling that role, well, you're just an idiot. I don't even know what you're doing. I thought I could trust you. Like it was, and it's like it wasn't even a trust issue.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just a whole crazy situation. So that was a work situation that has obviously stuck with me for like 30 years.
Wow.
Mhm. But it can happen anywhere, and it can happen in those romantic relationships, especially because I do think sometimes people our age will show up thirsty
Mm-hmm.
for a man or whatever relationship. I don't know if people will show up that way in friendships quite as much. We might show up for work depending on how badly we need a job or whatever we're getting from that. But romantic relationships, I think sometimes people can still just show up really thirsty and they will settle for things for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason. Well, I do know whatever reason we're not valuing ourselves the way we should.
Well, I think it also goes back to stop trying to fix people too.
Thank you.
As women, we naturally have that maternal instinct to take care of one another. But let's face it, you can't financially support everybody. You
Mm-mm.
can't encourage someone that doesn't want to be encouraged. You can't do the work for somebody. They've got to put in the time and effort themselves. You can't want someone to heal more than they want to heal.
Hmm.
You can't communicate for someone. You can't make someone emotionally mature. And you can't force someone to recognize your value.
Mhm.
Let's face it, their growth is not your responsibility.
No.
And that's a great example that you gave in your work example. They're not showing up to do the work.
Mhm.
That's not your fault.
No. And that was actual physical work. That's not even the interior work that clearly needed to be addressed. Emotionally intelligent much? But I like all of those things that you said, but I also, because I always like to do the other side of the coin, not
Mm-hmm.
everything's a red flag. Not everyone is going to have all the things that you want. In fact, it's a Tyler Perry movie. Why Did I Get Married? It's the first one. And he talked about the 80% rule in that. Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong on this because this just popped in. This wasn't in any of my notes. But he talks about the 80% rule. It's like the person you end up with has like 80%. And so sometimes it's like we'll see somebody that has that other 20%. And that's when we start thinking that the person we're with is not who we want or who they should be because of that other 20%. No one, not even you, can be 100% of what somebody needs. People will focus on that 20% more than the 80%. So I would encourage strongly, if you're in a relationship, let's look at, is it the 80%? Let's examine what attracted us to that person, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship. Is it still there? Remember why. I think sometimes when life gets in the way, we forget why we were ever even there. Again, this
Mm-hmm.
is probably more a romantic relationship, but think about when you first started dating or first met them, how many times you would just laugh like you couldn't stop. Um, Amy's going to be in the dating world and she's had some bad experiences, not going to lie, but I would just say don't just focus on the red flags. Be aware of them. But don't just be like, "Oh, red flag, red flag, red flag." Is it really a red flag or is it just something that's I don't wanna say not desirable because we still don't wanna settle, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
they're not going to meet every single thing. And a true
And
red flag is not speaking to you appropriately, being dismissive of your feelings. I don't know.
disrespectful.
Yeah. Just the real obvious things, but playing basketball with his friends on Saturday morning instead of going to the farmer's market with you is not a red flag. That's him having a life.
Well, I'm laughing at going back to your 80-20 example. One of my girlfriends said this, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so spot on. But when you're, thinking that there's something better out there for you, the grass isn't greener in another pasture. It's usually just full of more shit.
Oh, yeah, better. Yeah, more manure, more fertilizer. Yep.
So just graze on the one that you're in. Try to fix the grass in the pasture that you're currently grazing in.
Yes. And sometimes it's not up to the other person, whether it's a friendship or romantic relationship, to feed you all the time.
Mhm.
You do have to have some self I don't want to, what's the word I want, Amy? You have to be able to entertain yourself. It's kind of like when you leave a child alone with their toys. They have to be able to play by themselves. You are the exact same way. You cannot,
Self-reliance.
yes, you cannot count on someone else to fulfill all your needs, take care of all of everything.
Hmm. It kind of goes back into also not taking everything so personally either.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about that individual that you're trying to, fix per se, others people behavior isn't always about you,
Thank you.
right? Somebody could be having a bad day. Somebody disagreeing with you doesn't necessarily mean that they don't like you,
Mm-hmm.
nor does it mean that you did something wrong.
Right.
I think with wisdom, we are able to make those distinctions a little bit better than we were when we were in our early 20s. And I think it also gives us a little more emotional distance to realize that something may have happened and it doesn't mean that something is wrong with me
Right.
or wrong with the other person.
Mhm. For the most part, people are doing the best they can with what they have to work with. And I'm going to just throw in a little biblical perspective here for people. And this can apply even if you're not a Christian, but my pastor has been doing a sermon series on one another. And he talks about like the body of Christ and like Jesus is the head, of course. And then we're all parts of the body, but all the parts aren't the same. If you are a finger, you don't necessarily need to be with another same kind of finger because the human body only needs like one on each hand, basically, of each of those. So if we're
Mhm.
all the same kind of finger, nothing's going to get done. So different life experiences, different perspectives, whether social media lets us believe it or not, is actually a good thing.
Mhm. And sometimes realizing that some friendships could have an expiration date.
Mhm.
And that's okay too. We
Yep.
tend to assume that if we've known somebody for 20 plus years that they should automatically remain important in our lives. But longevity doesn't necessarily equal compatibility. People change, priorities change, values change. Sometimes you grow apart, sometimes you grow together.
I was watching a horrible Hallmark movie the other day. It was a Christmas movie. I won't get started on that, but anyway, I gotta quit watching them because I just sit there and complain the entire time about the unrealistic things. I won't get into that now, but I will put stuff in comments somewhere so you can hear me gripe. But anyway, but one of the things that happened is these people met and then they somehow like lost touch with each other. But somebody made the comment it's for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime when people come into your life. So it could have been the reason like making you aware of something or helping you look at something from a different perspective for a season. Sometimes work friends are like that. When you work with people, you think you're going to be the best of friends forever. People move and it's like maybe you run into them in the store and it's like, oh, hey, whatever. So those
Mhm.
are your season people. And then, of course, you have the lifetime people. And I have probably just a handful of lifetime people. And I'm okay with just a handful of lifetime people. And there's a joke, it's been on the internet, I don't know if you've seen it, but people always talk about the miracles of Jesus, and they say, but what they fail to mention is that he was 30 and had 12 close friends that he spent a lot of time with.
I love that biblical example, and that's fantastic. And I think uh, when you're younger, how many followers you have
Mm,
at this stage in my life, on my personal Facebook or Instagram page, I really don't care how many followers I have.
mm-mm. No, and they're not friends. That is something else that our poor young society has to deal with, and I don't know how many people our age struggle with it, but we have friends or we have followers, but as soon as you do something that they don't like, don't agree with, they will drop you like a hot potato. The real relationships in your life, those are the ones you really need to focus on. They are not gonna do that.
I think as we get older and wiser as well, we become more sensitive about protecting our energy. Things that we used to spend hours doing or arguing about in our 20s, at this stage in our life, it's like, that crap doesn't matter. I got laundry to do. I mean, I look at my nephew when he was a freshman in high school, and he spent an entire family dinner on his phone. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, well, all these girls posted on their Instagram and I have to like their stuff. And if I don't like it, they'll be mad at me. And I'm like, well, how much is there to like? You've been on the phone for the past 2 hours. He's like,
Wow.
you'd be surprised, Auntie. I'm like, wow. Okay. I just don't have the time or energy or the patience for that matter to sit around and want to be liked or accepted. But once again, that comes with age and wisdom. In the 20s, we talked about wanting to be liked and popular by everybody. And now, once again, I really don't care.
I do have less care than I did before. There's a handful of people I do care about. In fact, you got a text from me one day because I had done something and you didn't even remember. And because I'm like, are you upset with me? And you're like, no, why? And I'm just like, oh, thank goodness. But, we can read things into it. But again, that's just an example of I don't ever want to hurt you, whether inadvertently or intentionally. But no, I'm not going to spend my life trying to make everybody, especially on social media, like me. Are you out of your mind?
It kind of goes, it kind of, bids the question, what is currently taking more energy than it's giving back?
Mhm.
Him liking all of those posts, what was that? What was that doing in return? I mean, I suppose these girls weren't going to be mad at him per se, but
Mhm.
what are you getting out of the relationship?
Yeah, and it
You
sounded a
know,
little one-sided.
right, exactly. And, as we know, relationships aren't always going to be 50-50,
Mm-mm.
but it's not even about keeping score anymore.
Mm-mm.
It's about, is this relationship genuinely feeling good and healthy and reciprocal in a way that both of you are happy?
Right. Yeah.
I use, we're not keeping score and things aren't necessarily 50-50. Look at finances. The man might be the breadwinner or the woman might be the breadwinner and the other one is taking care of young children.
Mhm.
But each are bringing different things to the table where one might be the majority, the breadwinner, the other one is the majority, the nurturing. But once again, not keeping score is something that you learn, I think, with wisdom and later in life, that's not necessarily what I'm going to be focused on.
Yeah, that's a great example because no marriage is 50-50. Obviously, you have equality in 50-50 basically in your relationship, but as far as, like, expenditure of energy and stuff, yeah, it's very rarely equal, and friendships, very rarely equal. It just
Hmm.
but that's okay, as long as there is the back and forth. If you're the person that's always showing up, always reaching out, always doing this, always doing that, if it's that might be a little lopsided, and if it winds up, I don't know, I wanna say hurting your feelings or something like that, but if it's so one-sided that you're feeling really important, like you're carrying it, it's at what point do you just put it down?
And it goes back, you know, if you're happy and content with doing all those things,
Mhm.
then I guess there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think once that resentment starts to think it, when that resentment starts to sink in,
Mhm,
when you start feeling like you are keeping score, keeping tallies, that's when you know that it might be time to step back.
mhm. It's true. I actually had some people where I was perpetually the one reaching out, and I reached out one day and I didn't get an answer back. Like I got a quick answer, then I asked another question like, "Hey, what else is going on?" or whatever, just, no answer, and then I found out like a huge life event on Facebook. And I'm like, I don't care. Like I wasn't included in the event, which whatever, that's fine. That doesn't bother me. But the fact that you couldn't tell me what it is, so I just in my head I was like, okay, so this is done. This is over. I'm not valued as a friend, so I'm gonna quit trying.
Mhm.
And of course I'm catty and passive aggressive. So my thought was if they ever message me, I'm gonna be like, new phone, who dis? I mean, I wouldn't really, but that was my behavior. But yeah, it was just one sided and maybe there were other clues I should have picked up on, but it's okay, and I don't know the reason why, I did care, but now I don't.
There you go. Because I think at this stage now, we feel way more comfortable being able to walk away
Mhm.
from a relationship or a situation where we're not feeling the love.
Reason, season, lifetime.
Hmm.
This was a
And
seasonal relationship, and it's okay.
it doesn't mean that we're cold. It doesn't mean that we're, disposable. It doesn't mean that we're discarding this individual, but sometimes walking away is the healthiest choice.
Mhm. Yeah. And made the statement about keeping score in relationships. I think that's something else too when we're thinking about relationships and our value and how we look at ourselves and how we approach things. If someone is, I don't know, maybe succeeding in an area that you aren't, we got to stop doing the comparison game,
Hmm.
because another important relationship is a relationship you have with yourself. So, an example, um, you know, we could use relationships. Like Amy could sit and just be like, "Oh, she's had this great marriage for 34 years. Why can't I do that? Why didn't I have that?" That's not the conversation you need to have. We don't keep scores like that. Amy
Hmm.
is probably a better salesperson. In fact, I know she is. So she's just, that's her gift. But I'm not going to compare myself like, oh, Amy does this, Amy does that. Stop the comparison game. Be supportive of whatever relationship. And yeah, don't put yourself down. Don't be jealous. Actually honor the person, be happy for them, have an actual genuine thing. Everybody's life experiences, everybody's talents, everybody's reason for how, what, and when they do things is completely different. Amy's life is very different from mine, and this is going to sound terrible, but I mean, like, it's you. You know, you're not in a romantic relationship right now. There have been times where you were, and you had different priorities, but now you can go and pursue different things and do different things than what I can do at this juncture of my life. But I'm not going to compare and just be like, although I was jealous you were at the Cubs game. So there's that. But otherwise, I'm not going to compare because Amy's reasoning behind this is different. So I'm not less than. I'm just different. And I'm not going to be jealous of my friend. I'm going to wish her well.
Thank you. And I think when it comes, going back to our topic about being able to comfortably walk away from a non-positive situation, walking away doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love someone. Sometimes you realize that you love yourself enough to stop participating in something that is unhealthy.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like going out until 3 a.m. was not necessarily good for you as a mom.
Right. Realizing that the things that were important back then aren't necessarily important anymore. And that's okay because it doesn't mean that I don't love that person any less. I just choose to love myself.
Hmm. I think that's a great point. And that's it. It does go to the relationship with yourself. And it goes back to the point that we talked about where your confidence in things are going to be coming from knowing who you are,
Hmm.
taking care of yourself, taking care of your health, taking care of your interests, doing work that you find meaningful and enjoyable, making sure that you can pay your bills and stuff like that. So all of that where you're doing things that show you that you value you, it does make it easier to recognize things in relationships and to realize if something's maybe unhealthy or it's not this stage of my life. It's kind of like we talk about like, thank you, this is not the season of my life for that right now. And we had great fun. Maybe you get with that person who wants to go out at 3 a.m. once a quarter to try to do it one more time the way you did it when you were 23.
Right.
And even though Amy doesn't listen to country music, it's Toby Keith is, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I ever was. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the lifestyle, but it's not to say that you eliminate those relationships unless it is something completely, completely unhealthy.
Because wisdom in a relationship is not about becoming cynical,
Mm-mm.
it's about becoming discerning.
Mhm.
We don't love anyone less, we just choose to love more carefully.
Oh, I like that.
And we don't necessarily care less, we just choose to care about other things.
Mhm.
I have a little wisdom test. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. Who knows with me some days, right, Amy? But no, nothing off the top of my head. So I'm going to hear your wisdom test.
This is the wisdom test. This is the younger version of me versus the wise version of me. So the younger me would ask the question or would pose the phrase, well, they'll change. Or I know that they'll change. Or they're just going through a phase. The wiser me says, history repeats itself and believe the pattern. The younger me, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want them to be mad at me. The wise me says, their feelings aren't my responsibility. The younger me, but we've been friends forever. The wise me says, history doesn't require access to everything. And if this is not a reciprocal relationship that we both feel mutually beneficial in, then it's not the reason. Wait, help me, Chey.
Reason, season, lifetime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hallmark movies.
And the final question, and this is just a question to ask yourself, is who are the people in your life who you can be completely you around?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the relationships? Who are the individuals that you can be your true, authentic self? And are those the relationships that you're putting your attention to? Or are you wasting time on others that don't deserve it? As you think about these questions and take your little wisdom test, always remember, you got this. Just a quick reminder, everything we share on this podcast is for inspirational, personal growth, and real-life conversation. We're not doctors, therapists, financial advisors, or legal experts. Just two women sharing experiences, lessons, and stories to help you level up your life. Always do what's best for you and seek out qualified professionals when you need specific guidance. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and remember, you got this.